Good evening, I'm James Wolverton.
And I'm John Coffey.
And we're going to talk...
This is Let's Talk Bourbon. That's what we're going to be talking about.
And whiskey.
And whiskey.
Beer and spirits and mainly the brown water, because we are... Actually, neither of us are native Kentuckians, though, are we?
But we are Kentucky proud, so
yes.
That counts for something.
And we are... this is the gal that brought me to the party, so we're probably going to always stick with bourbon for the most part.
That's right.
But we will talk beer, maybe even some wine. It's going to be bourbon related or seasonal related, but most of the talk is going to be about bourbon. A little bit about us, we'll probably introduce for a little while. Total Spirits certified with a big box retailer, will be named later. Also an executive bourbon steward with the Stave and Thief Bourbon Society. Partly thanks to this gentleman, Mr. Coffey, and your credentials are?
Yeah, I'm an enterprise level executive bourbon steward, so I taught James part of what he knows and he learned the rest of it on his own. But I've also teach hospitality groups, and I do train the Lexington Bourbon Academy with my company Beyond the Barrel. So I go out and do private tastings and events, and we do a lot with bourbon, but we're also part of the Lexington Bourbon Society, so I've been a director, one of the directors for...
Make sure what's up with that beer.
That's right, for 5 years since we started. Can't believe it's been that long, and James is also a director.
Yeah, going on 2 years now. So yeah,
that's right.
It's a lot of fun. I know the Lexington Bourbon Society, one of the oldest in Central Kentucky, and very generous. We have some wonderful, I'll go ahead and use the term, OG members that... Not only OG to Lexington Bourbon Society, these people were collecting bourbon before it was cool. And,
way before it was cool.
And fun bunkers, and they're some of the most generous, nice members you're going to ever meet. So that's one of the reasons I've stayed around for 3+ years. And
not only that, we do a lot of charity work. Lexington Bourbon Society is 501c7, so they are non-profit, and essentially what that means is they get people together to drink bourbon and donate a lot of money. So I think anywhere between $10,000 and $20,000.
We're a drinking club with a donation problem.
Drinking club with a donating problem, and it's all local, so very proud of that. So what do we got here, James?
So to start off, let's start with Heaven Hill, older distillery, family owned. And I'll have to describe this with an asterisk because it's not the only family owned in Kentucky, but they are the only family owned that's headquartered in Kentucky. Sazerac, as we know, is actually headquartered in New Orleans, but they are a family owned company. Very involved, big in Bardstown, make lots of different products. One
of the things about the bourbon world too is you see a lot of intermingling of old families that have been in bourbon for a long time, so they might... for example, Craig Beam worked with Heaven Hill out of the Beam family, and you would think, why isn't he working for Jim Beam? Because
of the nose in the seat.
Long time ago, maybe got mad at him. No, I mean, you know, there's a lot of intermingling, and they're all friends. That's what's great about these distilleries. They are based out of Bardstown, really charming area. If you can check it out. Heaven Hill is probably the largest family-owned distillery that I'm aware of that is based here in Kentucky. They have a lot of products, Heaven Hill being one of them, but they also have Elijah Craig, Evan Williams,
Parker's Heritage,
ryes like Pikesville Rye.
What's the weeder they have? Because they have that
Larceny,
Old Fitz,
William Heaven Hill.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
So, and also the Heaven Hill Vodka, Heaven Hill Gin, which leads me to my first kind of comment on Heaven Hill. And I know I've heard this in the aisles that a lot of people overlook this line because it's on a lower shelf. They're, let's call it affordable for the lower shelf. But to think that the company who has, you know, Parker's Heritage, Elijah Craig 18 and 21, but their signature brand is the one that's, you know, $15 or less is kind of surprising.
Yeah, and I think, you know, what's interesting about people that I know that their families have grown up with Heaven Hill is there was just always a connotation that it was the easy one to grab off the bottom of the shelf, so that there's not a whole lot of necessarily reverence, but on the other hand, it's always been around, right? So, but I think that's starting to change now, for sure, and I think that's a good thing.
You know, especially with the disappearance of one we'll discuss about earlier. Going further on the video, we'll discuss that still hurts. But let's start with the white label. It is a Kentucky straight, so it means it's at least how old?
Means it's got to be at least 2 years, but because it's not age stated, then we can assume that it's 4 plus. If it's less than 4, they have to actually put the year on there.
And it's 80 proof, so it's
the lowest bottling proof that you can have as a whiskey. So
pretty much that one's universal over all the whiskey rules, because all whiskeys have their own rules.
They call it white label because it is white label. That's a white label. I would say it's not a sexy label. It does say in big words on the side of it, charcoal filtered and custom made mash. Well, I can tell you pretty much you don't want to reuse the same mash. That'd be kind of weird unless you're, backset. Yeah,
backset the whole mash.
And then charcoal filtered. Just a little hint, not to bash the guys down in Tennessee, but
they are the #1 selling whiskey in the world.
Well, yeah. Most bourbons and whiskeys end up being charcoal filtered. Spoiler alert.
If you've ever drank from the barrel, which both of us have, because we've done barrel picks, which anybody needs to go on, it's a lot of fun, but the char comes out in the barrel, and although I'm sure whiskey geeks would love it if you opened up an 80 proof and there were chunks in it, they'd probably pay more. The general public would probably return it. I guarantee you they would return it and say there's stuff floating in my whiskey. So you got to run it through some kind of sieve. And charcoal,
it's a natural filtrant. Most of the time it's innocuous, but it will get rid of the undesirables out of there, which is a good thing. So. And
to speak to our cousins to the south who are not bourbon because they don't want to be bourbon, and the other reason is they don't just charcoal filter it; they charcoal filter it through 5 feet of a specific type of charcoal. So it's yeah, it's a little different. It's a really fun tour. You should go. They do a good job. I'm not a huge fan of a majority of their products, but the tour is good, and you got to give respect.
Well, enough about them. Let's talk about Heaven Hill, man.
So it's 80 proof, and it is young.
It's a light nose. I get a little bit of floral quality. It is definitely kind of corny for sure.
Whew. Boy, okay. I broke one of the rules, although when you do smell, don't stick your nose in like I just did.
Don't do what he did.
Although this is a lower proof, so it wouldn't be as bad. But you should smell. You gotta smell because that's the majority of your taste is right here before you ever get to your mouth. But.
So at 80 proof, it's not harsh. It's not abrasive. It's pretty easy to put down. It's what, $9 a bottle?
Yeah, under $10 a bottle. Honestly, when I bought this, I was looking to dog it because it is, it's price bias and it's really hard to, even for people like us who know, still it's a price bias when you look at something that cheap. You go, it can't be that good. And am I going to sit by the fire and wax poetic on it? No. Would I take it to Keeneland and mix it, or at the end of the Keeneland sip on it a little bit?
Make a refreshing cocktail. I actually get a hint of mint in it. Might make a great mint julep.
Yeah. Maybe you want something a little higher proof, but I mean, if you want something affordable to take to tailgating. The only knock I really have on this is, boy, that label's awful. I mean, no offense, guys, but looks. Yeah, have they updated it since the Mad Men days?
I don't know. No. I mean, I feel like we could design it with a printer and the willpower to make something sexy, but
yeah, neither here nor there. So,
not bad.
No, it's
for $9. Definitely check it out.
Yeah, it's above average for that price range. It does come in the 175. Unfortunately, if you're not a fan of plastic, these two, unfortunately, when you get to the bigger sizes, are just plastic. But usually, when you take it tailgating, the plastic doesn't last long. So let's move to the green.
And it's also more friendly when you drop it on the ground.
Or you're going boating or whatever. Yeah.
It's not supposed to take it on a boat.
Sure you're not. That never happens at Lake Cumberland. There we go. That's a little bit better for pouring.
So tell me about this one, James.
This is a
1785.
6-year, 90 proof. It's green label.
So at least 6 years.
So, and a 10 more percentage proof. So you got at least 2 years, if not longer.
And it's called Old Style because it's older. Haha.
The youngest in that is 6. Now, could they have had older than 6 mixed in with the white to give some flavor? Sure, but they didn't have to legally. If you see an age on a bottle, it has to be on there. For fans of this, because when we get to the next one, you'll understand what we're talking about. Bourbon being so hot and popular, to have an age stated under, what is this, $13?
Yeah, under 20.
It's just tough.
It's on the hit list of things that might get scooped up quick.
So I don't want to do fear mongering, but if you buy another extra bottle because you really like it, I would say to be smart. I haven't heard anything concrete, but with the other 6-year we're about to hit disappearing, it just, you can connect the dots.
Yeah. It says custom made mash again.
Yep. I think this is Kentucky only. But don't quote me on that, but I think this is a Kentucky only.
Nose on this one to me is a little bit more docile. I think that's because of the longer age and it's still lower proof. I would consider it to be 90 proof is on the lower end. But the oak adds more of an oaky quality.
I get a little more spice even too.
Yeah, I think the rye shines through a little bit more.
So funny how much magic comes in those barrels for even just 2 years.
Yeah, it's true. Well, and I think the thing about rye is it shows its legs earlier in the process when it's in the barrel, so you can get some of it here, but maybe it's a little bit more represented in what it's going to transform into in this one.
In probably 2 years, especially with the angel share and evaporation, you've got more space in that barrel, you've got more oxygen to play with the conjugers, so you can get some more unique flavors even in 2 years. And definitely you would think 10 percentage proof points doesn't make a difference, but it really can.
Yeah,
there's
absolutely.
a lot of difference that you can bring to play.
Probably also what we don't know is location of the warehouse, where they age these barrels, how much barrels go into a batch, because that could add or take away certain consistencies if they're going for a profile on that. I know they like to do what they call a try test out there. So what they'll do is they'll take one that's from the previous bottling, and then take 2 others, and then they'll taste test to see which one's a QC and the other 2 are in the realm. And so if somebody can pick it out, then they're doing good. Or if it's really hard to differentiate, they're doing it right. So.
Right. But at 6 year, you're starting to get to, we drink that neat.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it would make a better cocktail. I'm of the idea that the higher proof, the more it stands in, because usually you're adding sugary or sour things and to stand up. And I think an 80 proof, unless you're just making a gallon of it, is just
I'd probably graduate to more of a old fashioned with this one. Versus like like a sling, like more of a complex cocktail for sure.
But 6 year age stated. And then okay, let's get to the elephant in the room. So you want to talk about? I'm even gonna.
Well, here's what
I'll
lead in
with.
The
bigger size.
I'm gonna let James talk about this bottle, but one of the things that I think is really cool about Heaven Hill and Bernie lovers, who, God love him, he's got his Bottled and Bond tattoo that he shows off with pride like a badge of honor. He talks about Army and Navy and Boy Scouts, and how the more you graduate, the more medals and badges you get. Well, Bottled and Bond is like the Navy SEAL of bourbon. That's from what Bernie says. And it's true, because it's the most regulated type of bourbon that there is out there. And Heaven Hill is actually the champion of the majority of Bottled and Bond bourbons. In 1897, yeah, quite a few. But in 1897, Secretary of Treasury John Carlisle actually came out of the woodwork and said, hey, we need to regulate this stuff. There were rectifiers out there making stuff that had arsenic in it, grain-neutral spirits, spit, tobacco, you name it. And there were actually books being written on how to make bourbon similar spirits. Really how to manifest something to look like bourbon, and it would just have a small amount of whiskey in it. So what they did was they got together with the government and said, hey, you can tax this, although people weren't too happy because the War of 1812 just happened, no taxation without representation, and all of that. But then we turn around and tax ourselves, right? But that was in the spirit of consumer protection. Actually, this is in legalese, which is pretty fun. That this is one of the very first consumer protection acts that actually ever came forward, which was the Bottle and Bond Act.
Consider that America. Before we made sure our food was sanitary and safe, we had to make sure our liquor was.
Yeah.
That just says a lot about this country. It explains prohibition too. I mean,
Right.
if we're going to concentrate on one area, we're going to concentrate on liquor before we're food. You could see where that's going.
Absolutely. But Bottle de Bond, what it did real quick, it's not overly complicated, was that it's got to be distilled, it's got to be at least 4 years old. It's got to be distilled at one distillery and in one season, so that's January to June or July through December. And along with that, it actually has to state on the label the DSP, so distilled spirits place, or plant actually is what it is, and it's got to say where it's barreled at. So you'll see that it's got Louisville and Bardstown on there. And so back in the day, they actually had a stamp that would be put on the bottle, and you knew that that was good stuff. That the only thing that you could add to that period was water. Versus some of those others out there.
Because it had to be 100, so if it came out of the barrel at 103, they added some water to make it 100 proof.
So already that's pretty special.
Yeah. So, and even I know my grandparents' age and a little bit of my parents, they still said that was the good stuff because they knew it was, and they knew it was quality. So that held through for a long time. So what was nice about, there are two things that were nice about this before we lost it. First of all, it was Kentucky only, which was really cool. So, and I know even before it disappeared, there were people that came to my big box store and would buy a case to take it to Ohio, Florida, Georgia. Because
there were also people that would come to your big box store and get offended because you were trying to give them a $20 bottle of bourbon.
That's okay. Cute note. If you're asking for something that's only sold in Kentucky, it's not going to be your Blanton's and it's not going to be your Pappy. They'll sell that anywhere. They don't care. It's usually your off-brands that you don't really even know, but they're really good. And sorry if it's Kentucky only, and we are the biggest distiller of bourbon. And if we're limiting it to our state, even if it's affordable, it's going to be good. Get over it. But the nice thing was also 2 years older than the minimum. So not only are they going to do 4, they're going to give it another 2 just to round it out. And it only sold in the 750 glass. It was a wonderful secret for many, many years. That this was you could still drink it and take it to your tailgating because it was, what, $12.
And the longer it sat there as one of those, again, aged, sort of regulated, harder to find spirits, and the longer stuff got scarcer, it's now getting really hard to find. So if you can find a bottle or two, I would buy it anyway.
And you're not going to find it for 12. There are, I know, well, shout out to Chris and Bourbon on Rye. They do sell it. It's 20. But once again, you can buy it. Yeah. I mean, I gave them grief, and they turned around and said, "Can you sell me one at 12?" And I said, "No." And they said, "Shut up." And I'm like, well, that's a valid argument.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, let's dive into it. Definitely a little bit more tobacco, peppery on the nose.
I mean, it is one of my favorites. Unfortunately, I did come late to the party on this, and it was price biased. I'll be the first to admit it.
It's very smooth. The thing that's representative across all three of these products, I think, is it's very approachable. Each one of them is drinkable. They're not harsh.
It's got the most hug, but it's still...
This one is 100 proof, but it's still smooth.
Oh yeah, it's caramel corn. It's like the caramel corn you would get a lot of sweetness. It's funny, I almost taste more rye in the 90 than I do in the 100.
Yeah, I think the oak is a little bit more on showcase here. That oak flavor. I get more vanilla compound in this. It's very good though.
Yeah.
For the price, I mean, for something sub 20,
it was
didn't get much better
awesome.
than that.
No, it was awesome. And if you could, go to Bourbon on Rye. They sell for you. It was in the $20 range. I would still buy it. And that was their well, which made my day. Their well was an American beer and a shot of Heaven Hill bottled and bond.
Yeah.
Which, for $5, was a heck of a deal. I enjoyed the heck out of it.
So if you see it sitting on a shelf somewhere and it says bottled and bond Heaven Hill,
buy it.
Pro tip, pick it up.
What would be your pain point before you would start picking them up?
My pain point?
That you wouldn't do.
Once it got over, probably if it creeped into close to $40 range, I would start thinking about it. I would start saying maybe not.
I know, I stockpiled, so mine was 30, but I stockpiled. So I guess, I don't know, if I got down to a bottle or two and I saw it at 35, yeah. I might. I don't know. Then you start getting into a price point where there are a lot of good bourbons in that price point.
But in fairness,
you can't get it anymore.
There's a lot of people just now starting to release bottled and bond bourbons at $55 a bottle. You know, you take a look at Wilderness Trail, wonderful place, wonderful juice. Those guys are tremendous, talented. But the thing is, they can't make it in the volume that Heaven Hill can, and they can't offer it for that price. So if you think about new players on the market that are trying to introduce and compete, you're not going to find anything that cheap.
But like them and New Riff, how smart is that? That was the industry standard for what quality bourbon had to be, and for a new startup to wait 4 years and then release it at 100 proof when you could water it down legally, you could water it down all the way to 80. You wouldn't sell it, but you could water it down to 90 or 95, and most people would still buy it. But to wait that time amount and be that regulated, that shows that.
Think if you're a craft distiller and you have the time, do it. Make your gin, make your vodka, sit on it for 4 years, or release a quality product.
Or if you're Wilderness Trail, all the and they made most of their money in the yeast and stuff like that, though, didn't they?
Yeah, ferment solutions.
It's quite smart, but yeah,
good stuff.
It's solid.
So you got some beer for us?
Yeah, Highwire did, and it's one of our favorite places in Asheville. Last time you and Kelly were there, you didn't do their tour though, did you?
We didn't do the tour, but yeah, I like Highwire.
Asheville, backstory on why they're Highwire. Asheville used to be a big hub back in the 30s for the circus industry. That's where they would come and do their winters, and there was a big railroad hub. They had their first fermentation area in what used to be fairgrounds for where the people at the circus would stop, so they called themselves Highwire.
That explains all the poor lost soul hippie / artistes that are on the corners everywhere.
They just wanted to run away and join the circus, I guess. And
it still lives on, folks.
Yes, it does. This is a low pitch. It's a juicy IPA, so this is way up your alley.
Ooh, juicy.
IPAs, as you watch, I know. I'm learning. Honestly, places like Highwire and some of the craft West 6 Country Boy are getting me into IPAs. I've not been much of a fan.
Once you start, it grows on you.
It does. It's
like a snake bite.
It's got to have layers to it. It's kind of almost like a sweet wine. I can drink some sweet wines if there's some back notes to it, like a good Riesling. Same with like an IPA. If it's got something besides pine sol, I'll really dig it. But if that pine flavor just overpowers me, or a gin for alcohol purposes, you can get too ginny. But if you have a gin and there's some good rose petals or some botanicals, I'm interested in it. This is actually quite nice. It's got a lot of good grapefruit.
What a good nose.
A lot of great citrus.
Yeah, you get that grapefruit for sure.
They just recently did a takeover at the Casual Pint downtown.
Local Lexington bar.
Really,
very cool.
Very nice. It was quite popular. I walked in, they thought, "Are you the rep?" And I'm like, "I could be."
It's kind of malty hoppy. I like that.
Yeah, there's some definitely sweet notes to it. layers on the glass real well too. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. So it's not overly hoppy. The hops just don't overwhelm and take over your tongue. It's smooth. It's balanced.
It's still. I'm still more of a New England, less West Coast kind of hop, so it still borders on that for me. But a hot summer day, and the weather's gotten a lot nicer here in Kentucky, so I could see drinking this on an 80 to 90 degree afternoon.
It's got that kind of sweet mash, bourbon mash nose to it, though. You know, you ever walk up to a vat where the mash is fermenting and bubbling? It's got really kind of that overtone to it. I like that out of a beer.
That is distiller's beer. Kind of funny. These have a lot in common with this. It's just run through a fermenter. That's one of the biggest differences.
Yeah, distilled at really high proof.
Yeah. Let's take a beer and run it through a still. One of these days, I need to figure out who figured that out and how.
Well, that came over from 1600s.
Yeah, but who figured it out
monks
back then?
You want to know?
Yeah.
They figured everything out. They figured wine out. They figured, they had time on their hand. They made alcohol.
And
sounds
silence.
like a rough life.
Yes.
In silence. But they had a
They
lot
let
to
their
think
spirits
about.
doing the talking.
That's right. They talked to the spirits and drank with the spirits.
Call back. So, this is a great representation. Do not discount things because they're
low
affordable.
Shelf.
Yeah, low shelf, affordable. That was a hidden secret before we lost it. Probably lost it because, I love Bernie, but he kind of spoke the gospel a little too hard, and it caught on too much. And you can't. It is, to quote him, it is a whiskey business. So
it is a whiskey business, and I think to go for a coveted regulation, something that not everybody's going to put the time, the effort to do, is a pretty big deal. And not only that, but you got to think they put 53 gallons into a barrel. They get taxed on 66 proof gallons is what they get taxed on. It comes out to like $13 a year, and they essentially are getting taxed regardless. So why not now just do bottled and bond? I think, or have that in your arsenal.
And it's getting rebranded. It'll come back. We'll come back as a 6-year. We'll come back to. No one knows. They haven't released it. That's why personally I think. If I had to guess, I think the 6-year 90 proof would probably get rebranded eventually too, because it just makes sense. Why would you have?
But they might just take the 6-year off of it.
Yeah,
and just say that, but
yeah, it's not the first it's happened to. There's several bigger names that have just lost the age statement. Doesn't mean it doesn't have 6-year juice in it. It just doesn't mean there's a requirement. But don't discount them. They're really good. I think I wouldn't be upset if anyone served me. This was a shot in a beer. I would have been quite happy with it.
Absolutely.
So,
well, Higher Wire was a good choice, James. I liked it. Very good.
It's perfect. When you're in Asheville, wonderful place to visit. If you're not in Asheville and just want a great craft brewery that does really well, I'm a huge fan. So
I also like Catawba down there, and
I love the Green Man. That's a special place.
Green
in my
Man
heart,
for
too.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah, we've got something put away for another episode that I
Burial.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
Burial is good. Funkatorium.
Man,
Funkatorium's hit or miss. It was sour.
They were bought by was it Anheuser-Busch?
No, that's not the Funkatorium. That's
Wicked Weed.
Wicked Weed. Well, that's a whole different discussion too. We can have about.
We digress.
Well,
thanks for watching, everyone. We hope you enjoyed the review, and if you like our videos, feel free to subscribe. We're going to try to put these out as often as we can. Hopefully you learned a little bit. But, from that point of view, I'm John Coffey.
James Wolverton.
This is Let's Talk Bourbon.
And we'll see you in the future.
Take care, guys.
Keep drinking bourbon.